Hi campers, and welcome to week 3 of Camp Challenge. First, we're going to do a little review, and then we're going to move forward with our skill for this week. But before we get started, I just wanted to have a little chat with everyone and make sure we're all on the same page. So all of the teachers had a meeting last week, and we were talking about how we want everyone to be a little bit more involved. So we noticed that some of you are only viewing the videos for a short amount of time and not for the full 20 minutes or however long the video is. So although I'm glad that you're participating and still answering the questions, I'd like you to try as hard as you can to watch the whole video, because I will give you helpful tips throughout. We're going to do it together. I don't want it to be hard for you. If you follow along with me, it'll be much easier for you to complete, because I know last week I asked I asked all of you to tell me how hard you thought the assignment was, and a lot of you said it was very hard, and you gave it a 5 out of 5 for you wouldn't have been able to do it by yourself if I weren't here. So I just want us to focus on staying on task the whole time. I know it's not the most fun thing in the world to be watching videos during your summer and doing classes, but it is definitely going to help you when you go back to school, because you're going to feel like you're on track and like you've been keeping your brain working during the summer. So, like I said, we're not going to make it very hard. I just want you to follow along with me and we'll do it together. Another thing I want to add is that if you have any questions for me, you can leave those in the comments, or if you just have something that you want to say, it can just be a comment even, because we're still getting our app up and running, so I haven't been able to send you messages on there. So if you have anything that you want to say or a question you have for me about an assignment, you can definitely ask me that in the comments, because I want to be able to interact with you as much as we can, since we're not in the classroom where it would be very different. Okay. So if you have any questions about that even and what we're expecting from you, I want you to ask me in the comments when you put your answer down there to the poll question. Which reminds me that we need to be staying sharp the whole time we're watching this video, paying attention, so that you can answer that poll question at the end. And it should be very easy for you to answer that after watching the whole video. So like I said, I just want us to start with a review of last week. So if you still have your papers from last week, you can look back to those. But last week, if you can remember, we talked about the story with the water park. And first question I want you to answer for me out loud is, if you don't know a word in a story, how could you maybe figure out that word? So when we were reading about the water park, say you didn't know one of the words in there, what could you do to figure out that word without asking the teacher? I want you to give me an answer to that out loud. So we didn't talk about this question too much last week, but what I like to do, and it will help you with what we're doing today, is I like to look at what's around that word. Maybe read the sentences that are close to that word. Anything that's in the paragraph, even the pictures, can help you figure out what a word means. So not just assuming that since you've never seen the word, you don't know what it means, but using what you have right in front of you to figure out the word. So that's one thing I want us to keep in mind today. Another skill that we were working on last week is when you see a question that relates to the story, you go back and look for those words in the story, because most of the time you're going to be able to find the exact words in the story, which we'll see today. So I want you to keep those two things in mind. Never just assume that you don't know what a word means. Always work to figure it out. And the second thing is, when you have a question, I want you to look at the words in that question and go back and look for them in the passage. So for today, we're going to be talking about comparing and contrasting. And I want you to get out this worksheet you should have in your resource bag. And it says compare and contrast right at the top here. So go ahead and get that out. It should be 2 pages that you have. And if you can't find it or you don't have it, I'll show it on my screen. You can just write your answers down. So go ahead and get that out. And you can see at the top there, you can follow along with me. It says, when we compare two things, we tell how they are alike. So I want you to think, we're going to use summer and winter for our example. How are summer and winter alike? What's something that's the same? I want you to tell me out loud. Something that you could say for that is that they're both seasons. That would be something that's alike. And now I want you to think about something that's different. So our next sentence says, when we contrast two things, we tell how they are different. How are summer and winter different? You should be able to think of a lot of things for this answer. Big way that they would be different is that in the winter we get snow. In the summer it's mostly sunny, sometimes a little bit rainy, especially where we live. Another difference could be the temperature. It's very hot during summer, cold during winter. Something else that's different could be the activities that you do. In winter, you go sled riding, build a snowman. In summer, you play outside, go to the pool, things like that. So we're going to be focusing on comparing and contrasting two things today. So we're looking at what's alike and what's different with those. And you should have your worksheet out. I'm going to share my screen with you. Okay. All right, so everyone should see my screen right now. We're just going to look at the story first, and you may have seen the answers on the second page there. I still want you to follow along, and we're going to work together to get to the end. And today I'm going to have a different poll question for you, so you can't look at the answers to get the poll answer. We got to be paying attention the whole time. So I'm going to read this story. I just want you to follow along, and you can try to read it out loud to yourself, but I'm going to read it for you, so no worries about that. Okay, so it says, listen to the story. How are Bunny and Crow alike? How are they different? Bunny and Crow live in the forest. Bunny has soft white fur and long floppy ears. She lives in a nice little house under a rock. She likes to hop through the bushes. She likes to visit her animal friends. But she always wondered what the world outside the forest was like. So I want you to tell me out loud there. Did we learn about one animal or two animals so far? Can look back at the story. Okay, so far we've only learned about Bunny. What things did we learn about Bunny? I want you to say a few that you learned. So we learned that Bunny has soft white fur, long floppy ears. She lives in a little house under a rock. She likes to hop through the bushes. She visits her animal friends. But at the end, we learned that she always wondered what the world outside the forest was like. Okay, moving on to Crow. So here's our other animal that we're reading about. Crow has shiny black feathers. His house is a nice nest at the top of a tree. He likes to fly high above the forest. He likes to fly over rivers and towns outside the forest. So which animal did we just learn about there? Down in this paragraph where my mouse is. Okay, we learned about Crow. And tell me a few things that you learned about Crow. Okay, Crow has shiny black feathers. His house is a nice nest at the top of a tree, and he likes to fly. We see that he flies above the forest, over rivers, and towns outside the forest. So we didn't learn too much about him compared to Bunny. Okay, moving on. One day, Bunny saw Crow sitting in a tree. "Hello, Crow," she called. "Can you tell me what the world is like outside the forest?" So Crow told Bunny all about the rivers and towns outside the forest. Bunny and Crow became good friends. So do you think that Bunny and Crow are very similar, or are they very different? I think that Bunny and Crow are very different, but we also learn how they're the same at the end. They become friends and they're able to share stories together. So that first and second paragraph up here, this one about Bunny and this one about Crow, we're learning about what's different about them. And down here, we learn how they come together and end up being friends in the end. So we're going to go on to our questions here, and we're going to answer them together because I know some people last week said they thought it was a little bit challenging. So we'll go through together, and then I'll ask you a few questions at the end that we'll talk about and discuss. So number 1, check the box that tells how Bunny and Crow are alike. And our options are Bunny and Crow both live in the forest, or Bunny has white fur and Crow has black feathers. I want you to try to answer that by yourself, and then we will go over it. Which one shows how they are alike? There's a very important word that can give away the answer too. So I'm going to circle the word that tells me the answer. My answer is, which statement shows that they're alike? Bunny and Crow both live in the forest. So I circled the word both down there because when you say the word both, you're talking about what's similar or the same about two things. In this case, Bunny and Crow. Number 2. Check the box that tells how Bunny and Crow are different. Bunny's home is under a rock and Crow's home is in a tree. Bunny has a nice house and Crow has a nice house. So now we're talking about what's different. So which one do we think is different? So the one that we pick for what's different is that Bunny's home is under a rock and Crow's home is in a tree. Because our second answer, don't want to show you the answers. Our second answer for number 2 is Bunny has a nice house and Crow has a nice house. That's telling us that they're the same. So our answer for how they are different would be the first one. So keep following along. We're going to go to number 3. Check the box that tells how Bunny and Crow are alike. So we're back to finding something that's similar about them. Bunny tells Crow about her animal friends, and Crow tells Bunny about the things he has seen. Or Bunny likes to tell stories and Crow likes to tell stories. How are they the same? Which answer shows they are the same? Okay, our answer that shows they are the same is that Bunny likes to tell stories and Crow likes to tell stories. We're learning about what is alike about them. They came together at the end and wanted to learn about each other. Okay, number 4, we're circling the word to complete each sentence. And if you see, there's one word that should be a little bit bolder. I don't know if yours is in color, but we have the word compare and contrast. So for number 4, when we compare two things, we tell how they are. It's comparing how things are alike or how they're different. If I'm comparing two things, think about when we compared summer and winter. They were both seasons. We were telling how they were. Go ahead and circle an answer. Alike. We're telling how they are alike when we compare two things. Something that was alike about Bunny and Crow is that they both like to tell stories. And then our last question, when we contrast two things, we tell how they are. When we're contrasting two things. When we were contrasting the seasons, we said summer is warm, winter is cold. in the summer you go to the pool, in the winter you build a snowman. So we were telling how they were different. We're telling how those two seasons are different. Okay, now what I want you to do is go ahead back to number 1. We're going to go through and check our answers, just make sure we're all on the same page here. So number 1, we said the answer was Bunny and Crow both live in the forest. Number 2, our answer is Bunny's home is under a rock and Crow's home is in a tree. Number 3, they are alike because Bunny likes to tell stories and Crow likes to tell stories. And then number 4, when we compare two things, we tell how they are alike. When we contrast two things, we tell how they are different. Now, what we're going to do, you can flip over to the back of your paper if you want to do it there. I'm going to ask you a question. We're going to be looking at two different animals, and I want you to compare and contrast them. So our first animal is going to be a cat, and our second animal is, can anyone guess what our second one is? It's going to be a dog. So two animals that you can have in your home. So there's a hint. I already gave you something that's similar. People have them as pets. But what we're going to do is you're going to draw a chart. You draw two circles like this, and you make them cross over in the middle a little bit. And if you are having trouble with that, then you can just write the word cat and write the word dog, and you are going to write what's different about them. So cat and dog. So before we do differences, I want us to discuss what's similar about a cat and dog. Go ahead and tell me some things out loud that are similar. I can think of a lot off the top of my head right now. And what I want you to do once you think of them, I have cat, dog, both. And then if you could draw your circles, what you're going to do is in the middle, you're going to write what is similar. And then the sides, you'll write what's different. So I'm going to write at the bottom so everyone can follow along with me. Things that I think are the same about a cat and dog. A cat and dog both live in houses usually. And they both have 4 legs. Now I know I've seen some dogs that don't have their 4th leg. Maybe they had surgery and had it removed. But in general, we're going to go with cats and dogs both have 4 legs. What else could we say? They both, think about what's on their body. They both have hair or fur. So what I did here was I wrote what was similar, and I wrote they both live in houses, they both have 4 legs, and they both have hair or fur. So you can take a look at my answers there. And like I said, if we do one of these again, I'll give you a chart so you don't have to draw one because it may be a little bit hard to fit all your words in there. So now, what's going to be our poll question? We did the story, we figured out how to compare and contrast two animals. You can look back at your answers if you need to, and like I said, ask me any questions that you need to in the comments. If this is way too hard for you or you want me to slow down a little bit, we can do that. But for this week, all I want you to do for your poll question is you'll write it on your paper first so you have your answer and then write it in the comments. But I want you to tell me what's different. So you're contrasting a cat and a dog. Tell me what's different about them. And I'll give you a hint. You can think about the sounds that they make. Think about what they like to eat. Think about if they like to play, what they like to play with, what they usually do. And all I want you to do in the comments for me is write like we did here. Write the word cat, write the word dog. Don't worry about the circles for now. Cat and dog. And I want you to write something about a cat and something about a dog. You're contrasting them. tell me what's different. So if you just want to write the sound that they make, you could do that. You can write me a full sentence if you want. A cat does blank and a dog does blank. Give me your answers. What's different about them? So all you're doing is telling me the differences. I already gave you the similarities. You can work with someone at home if you need to. If you're really struggling, like I said earlier, just ask me a question in the comments. I'm here to help. We can make it easier if we need to. We can make it harder if this is too easy for you. So no stress, just do your best. I'll take a look at your answers, and then we'll move forward next week after I look at your answers and see what we should work on. So I hope everyone has a good rest of their week. I hope you enjoyed our story today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.